Seibs, I've thought about this all weekend. To me, it was one of the best kicks of all time from Nathan on Thursday night.
Yeah, mate. He is so cool under pressure, isn't he? The second that they got that penalty, again, being an Eels fan, I'm thinking, oh no, here we go. I've got no doubt he's going to nail this. But to put it on like millimetre perfect, where he landed it on the 40, he knew exactly where he wanted to be. He knew his range, and yeah, it didn't look like missing, did it?
No, and the thing about that play is everyone knows exactly what he's trying to do.
Yep.
There's no one out of the loop as to the plan.
Even Para, like from memory, I think it was Campbell Gillard. He was going at him like a bull at a gate, had all of those big long limbs flying at Cleary, and he still iced it.
In saying that, Parramatta did eventually get the win. They needed it.
Yeah, they did, mate. And I think as well it was good for Mitchell Moses to kick that field goal. Like, people criticise really easy when it comes to footy, especially someone who's a little bit high profile. Moses seems to cop it more than most. I don't know why. He's a very good footballer. I mean, who cares what money he's being paid?
Yep.
He is excellent. He'd be top half a dozen halves in the comp, and that's 5'8" or halfback. And
yes.
Yeah, he got his opportunity and he was able to get the job done for Para. So I think it was good for them. I can see them going on a bit of a run now. We spoke about it last week, and they're a good footy team. They've lost a couple of tight games to other good teams. One or two of them they probably should have got away with, but I think that might be all they need now to go on a bit of a run and win a few.
Some news came out over the weekend that the Eels might be looking in a different direction as far as fullback is concerned, with Clint Gutherson being told that they would explore different options for a fullback. I don't disagree with it, but to me, if you're going to do that, you'd have to have at least a person in mind as to who you go after. Does anyone come to mind for you?
Tuivasa-Sheck.
That's one.
That was the first person I thought. And then I thought maybe Joey Manu.
Yep.
But outside of those two, there is not a fullback in the comp who's a better player than Gutho.
That's available.
That's available. Sorry, that's
yes.
available. Latrell's never leaving Souths.
No.
Trebojevic is never leaving Manly.
Yep.
Pappenhausen's injured.
And locked up anyway.
And it's debatable whether he's better than Gutho at fullback anyway. He's electric, but Gutherson is safe. He's very, very safe.
Do you think that's what they're looking for, though? Like, although Gutherson might be safer than Pappenhausen, sure, he's very consistent, Gutho, but that electricity that Pappenhausen brings is probably what they're looking for.
Oh, 100%. If they can find, if say a Manu or Tuivasa-Sheck becomes available, well, you're moving, because left centre is a weakness for Para. Wonga Blake, he's rocks and diamonds. Some weeks he's okay, some weeks he's really good, some weeks he's terrible. So you move Gutherson into that left centre spot if you've got a marquee fullback that can come in, and it's win-win. But if you don't, well, you just leave Gutherson where he is. You can't move him.
Out of those two, you would prefer Manu, wouldn't you?
I would, only because he's 5 years younger and actually playing league at the moment. So yeah, I would prefer Manu.
It's interesting though, those two names. Although Tuivasa-Sheck back to league has been some talk for some time now, and so with Sawali going to rugby union, maybe that opens up the possibility of coming back to the Roosters. But you got to think in 2 years' time, he's probably early 30s by then, early to mid 30s.
I don't know how old. What would he be? 28, 29? We can have a quick look at that while we're having a chat. But the thing with Manu is, I know there's not a massive amount of games where he's played fullback that we can go back and have a look at, but every single time he has played fullback, he's been awesome.
Unbelievable.
He was close to the best player at the World Cup from fullback.
Absolutely, and he's 30 now, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, so 30 this year. So you're probably not looking at him to come back and play fullback in 2 years.
No, that's right. And you know what? Teddy's probably the same age, if not
exactly
a year younger. So yeah, I think Manu could be the one that they're trying to put the feelers out for.
He could be the one. And there's a lot of talk about the Dolphins have swung and missed on a lot of players. And to me, Manu's the guy that they should have gone after there. And I don't know what he's on at the Roosters. It's got to be high, 800,000, you'd think. But I'd have no problem investing your marquee dollars on Joey Manu.
No, for sure. I think, with the Dolphins, the hammer, so he is a good footballer, and you could see that pretty early that he was going to be a good footballer. So, I think they knew what they were getting there with their fullback. But Manu could play 5'8" as well for them.
Do you support the move going after someone else to replace Gutho?
Only if it's someone that's better than him.
Yeah.
If it's someone as equal or lesser than Gutho, no way in the world. It's ridiculous. He's the heart and soul of Para. He gives everything he's got.
He had a really good game on the weekend as well. That catch that he took was frighteningly good.
And not only on the weekend just gone, he single-handedly kept them in the Manly game the week before as well.
Yeah.
When Manly were all over him, Gutho got him back in it. So, yeah, I just don't think it's a great idea to be replacing him with someone that's not as good. But if it's a Joey Manu or someone like that, then maybe you could interest me in it.
My younger brother was talking a lot over the weekend about, the script in rugby league, that there's a script already brought up, and that I didn't even think about this, but that was just another one on Thursday night, wasn't it? Parramatta, Mitch Moses kicking the field goal after
he's re-signed, yes. Yeah, and all the talk around Cleary and what he does and how he constantly ices the game, which he did, but Moses was able to get one back up.
Yeah, and we'll move on to Friday night. Storm, not fancy good, but it was a win that they needed.
They were good enough.
Yeah. Do we see any improvement in West Tigers?
No, not at all. And the Storm, like you said, it wasn't fancy. It wasn't, they wouldn't have been jumping out of their skin thinking, oh, we're back, because they did enough to get the job done. That was about it.
It was 22-6 at half-time. The game was over.
Yeah, it was. And Melbourne, they are good at identifying, when things aren't quite clicking for them, they just will grind it out and finish it off, playing the percentages. And I think that's what they did on Friday.
Why are they so reluctant to move on from Luke Brooks? Because clearly, it's for whatever reason, you can say he's a bad player, you can say it's the system, it's just not working.
Again, you got to have someone better. Wakeham is not better than him.
No.
Dewey is not better than him. So, what do you do?
And they probably don't have any other genuine halfbacks.
No.
And I would actually argue he's not even one himself.
No, he's probably more a runner than an organiser. The ironic thing is, I actually think him and Moses would have complemented each other really well as they got older. Like, I know they played together at a young age, but the styles that they both play, I think they would have been a great fit. But it's not going to happen now because Para's not going to move on from Dylan Brown. He's just signed a 32-year contract. So.
West Tigers have... It's pretty rare that you see this. They haven't gone in on any of their current players. They've gone all in on their coaching staff.
Yeah, I know. We spoke about it.
So it has to work for them, because if it doesn't, they won't win for decades.
They're going to be stubborn, hey? You know that.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not working.
No.
It is obvious. The style of footy that they're trying to play does not suit the players that they've got. So, there needs to be an adjustment there. And they are not going to move on. So the three blokes that they've got there, they're all stubborn people as well.
Oh,
so they're not going to change the way they're coaching or the style of footy they want to play.
No.
I can see them giving, and I know we'll talk about it, I can see them giving Brisbane a fright this week.
Yeah.
That might be the most ridiculous statement I come out with all year. But we'll get to that Brisbane Dolphins game in a minute. I wasn't impressed.
The Tigers will win one game.
Yeah, they'll win a game we don't expect them to win.
Yes, exactly. They did it 2 weeks in a row last year.
Did it to Para last year, yeah.
Exactly.
When Para were flying.
Yes. So they will win one of these games in the next sort of 5-6 weeks, where you just go, where did that come from?
And do we know, did Bateman, did he get through unscathed, or was there an injury that came out of it for him?
I thought he was okay.
Yeah, okay. Because he's certainly bubbling along. He's going to have a game very shortly where he scores a couple and sets one up.
He's a player, man.
Yeah, he is.
Brisbane and Dolphins. Before we get on to Brisbane, I just want to ask, how's it taken this long for Sean O'Sullivan to get a starting job? Because
injuries.
He's a really good half.
Well, injuries. So you think at the Roosters when he was first there, he was a kid. He was stuck behind Mitchell Pearce. I think he did his first ACL then.
Could have.
Then the Broncos picked him up. He had a full year basically out of action with his recovery from injury. I remember then he came in, it was actually when my brother was there, and I'm sure he tore a hemi, come back from that, did a shoulder, went to the Warriors, got injured again. The first year that he's had fully fit and not, carrying any injuries, he was at the Panthers behind Cleary.
Yeah.
And the games that he filled in, he actually looked good. So you could see that he was a good footballer, but he just had to have a run injury-free. Now he's got his opportunity to steer a side around and be the half. And the poor guy's done the peck.
This is where it tests the Dolphins, isn't it? This is where we really see the longevity of a season really kick in now. So they've lost Felice for a few weeks, which is just outrageous, just quietly.
Yep.
And Sean O'Sullivan. They're two of, if not their most important players, plus Jeremy Marshall-King as well.
So he's back this week. My opinion is they're teetering on the edge. So they've got just enough depth to cover what's happening at the moment because Katoa will come back.
Yes.
Milford will stay in the halves.
Yep.
Jeremy Marshall-King is back this week. I saw Jennings was 18th man anyway, so he'll fill that space for Tessie New. Edric Lee played for Capras, or Edric Lee stood on the wing for the Capras on Saturday. I don't know how involved he was, but he certainly has had a game back now. So they've got just enough to cover the injuries they've got at the moment, but it's round 4. So, yeah, things are going to get tough.
Just on the game, I thought this game was actually pretty well set up for Brisbane to dominate. And to me, the fact that they didn't, and they really were lucky to win in the end. They had to come from behind in the last 10 minutes with a really good Capewell run down the left-hand side. I think to me this said a lot more about Brisbane.
Yeah, the Capewell run down the left, the Stags runaway try. So, the people getting carried away saying how good he was and he ran for 180 metres, whatever it was. Well, 100 of them were on full time.
Yes.
But, again, they did enough to win. But it was so close with an undermanned Redcliffe side. The atmosphere was unreal. The whole night was set up. It was unbelievable. There was 58,000 people there. The rivalry is definitely alive. It's good to see. But as far as quality of footy goes compared to some of the other games over the weekend, it was pretty rubbish.
They got West Tigers this weekend, the Broncos. Look.
Oh, Broncos should win. Broncos should win by 50.
If Broncos don't win that, then we'll start asking some questions next week.
Whatever the line is, will be interesting. Because I think Tigers they'll show something. I don't know why.
Then they got... I tell you what, the next 3 games, they should win them all, but I reckon they could drop one of them just because they're playing rocks and diamonds teams over the next 3 weeks. So they've got Tigers, then they've got Canberra.
Yep.
And then they got the Gold Coast.
Canberra's in trouble. So the Titans. They're in trouble now too.
Traditionally, the Titans have put up a bit of a fight against the Broncos, and we'll get on the Raiders later on. There's a good team deep down the Raiders, but it is way deep down. And the Tigers, though, they should win this week.
Yeah, 100%. They're just 1-17. Broncos are better in every position.
Every position.
But they're winning,
Apart
but
from
they're not playing well. Yeah, sorry, Api Korosia. And probably the back row as well. The back row is probably the Tigers. They've got them too. But
Cowboys, Titans. Cows aren't going great. What an ugly game.
I put that in the same bracket as the night before. Good, it was a spectacle. It was exciting. There was a good crowd, but yuck. Tom Dearden doesn't play, and Titans beat them.
I watched this. I watched this game with my dad over the weekend, and we both looked at each other with 20 to go and said, "No one wants to win this."
No, and the Titans had lost their 2 best players, AJ Brimson and Foran, after about 20 minutes.
Yeah. What problems are there for the Cowboys? The fact that they weren't able to win this dominantly, and no Drinkwater, of course, but
no Nanai now either. He's gone for a fortnight, and they're scoring a lot of points through him.
They don't look... Their forward pack certainly doesn't look as impactful as it did last year. For some reason, it just looks slow.
Yeah. Do you reckon they're just waiting for something to happen, or or they think that they'll score enough points to get themselves out of trouble? What do you think?
Maybe, but you can't afford to do that.
No, definitely not.
You look at Para. Para a whisker away from being 0-4.
That's right.
And they're 4 close games.
Yeah.
So even a team as good as Para, you you can't afford to just go, oh, well, we'll outscore everyone. And that's why the Sharks, I thought, were teetering over the past couple of weeks because their defence was rubbish.
Yeah.
But they were just happy to outscore teams 32-30.
So I know we'll go there in a minute, but again, you answer this for me because I know what my answer is. So if you were a Parramatta fan and you were a Cowboys fan, over the last month, Cowboys were 1 from 3, Para were none from 3. Who would you have felt more comfortable as a supporter watching how they were playing?
Oh, even right now it's Parramatta.
Yeah, well, that's why I felt too, because you looked at it and you thought, they're not playing that bad. They just need to fix 1 or 2 things up, and none and 3 is 3 and none.
Yeah.
So
and I know that the Eels still have a couple of tough games to get through at this start of the season. I think they've got the Roosters this week. So the tough stretch isn't done for Parramatta. So they could potentially be 1 and 4. Even if they were 1 and 4, I would still preface them higher over the Cowboys at the moment.
Well, we spoke about that 10-game theory this year, didn't we? Where you can't really make too many judgments until it's 10 games in.
Yes, and if Parramatta can get to 4 and 6, after that 10-game block, I think they would take that right now.
Yeah, definitely. Anything more than that, and they'll be feeling really good.
Absolutely. And with the Cowboys, I know that we're a long way out, but they can't afford to play like they have the first month. It's been very 2020 Cowboys rather than 2021 Cowboys rather than 2022 Cowboys. It's almost like they just had this block year of excellence, and then it's been almost the same football. If they started like this last year, you would say it's the same Cowboys.
This is what people thought they were going to be like last year.
Exactly. Best game of the weekend, probably Souths and Manly. Look, I'm not even saying this because it's your brother.
Manly were the better side and should have won.
I thought Manly were dudded.
That was a terrible call.
And again, the theme of the week, the script was written for John Sattler passing away. And how fitting that it was against Manly too.
13 and 13-12.
13-12.
Yeah.
Some really great signs for Manly. I thought a lot of players from Manly had probably their best games of the year. And I thought Ethan Bullymore was fantastic for Manly.
He was really good.
Brad Parker was outstanding.
Yeah, he actually he made Campbell Graham miss one-on-one a number of times, and Campbell Graham's arguably the best defensive centre in the comp.
No doubt in the world. And the forward pass, that'll be the worst decision of the year.
It was terrible because it changed the momentum of the game. That's when Manly were on top. They would have jumped out to 12-6, I think, at that point.
12-6,
yeah. And you just had that feeling that Manly were about to really start running away with it. Then all of a sudden the whole game changed. Manly still should have won. They still should have won. There was a couple of bad errors. Josh Aloiai at the end, that when he's snatching at that pass. Again, you speak about the script. You could just see it coming a mile away.
Yeah. I will say, in the second half, Manly were up 12-10. They had 2 penalties right in front of the post, and they elected to tap and play on. Now, in previous years, I would be all for that. Play on. There's no point going for 2. But now with the 2-point field goal, do you think we'll see more teams going for 2 even when they're only up by 2?
No. Because in retrospect, it's great. They should have. Of course, they should have taken the 2.
Yeah.
But at the time, what's the value in going, realistically, what's the value in going up from 2 to 4?
And I agree.
So, no, I don't think it'll change. I think if you're coached that way or you're that way inclined as a player, you're still going to take the 2 if you'd always take the 2. If you're an attacking-minded team, you're going to tap and go. It was a funny game for 2 teams that aren't renowned for their defence and they are known for their attacking ability. I don't know if it was really good defence, the conditions were a bit tricky, or everyone was just a little bit off. But it wasn't as free flow. I was expecting it to be 28 all, not 12 all.
Yes, they had just relayed the turf not long ago there.
Yeah.
They spent $1 million on relaying the turf. So
looked slippery, didn't it? And heavy.
It did. It looked like, I think Tom slipped in the first set.
So it'd be interesting to know when either of these teams play this week. Because I'm a big, I don't mind having a punt on the footy. And I'm a big believer in games like that. If it's a quick turnaround, the teams struggle. And games like the ones last week in the heat, I wasn't shocked that the Dogs got rolled. They played on Sunday Ave in 35-degree heat. Then they had to travel to New Zealand. So I had actually gone for the Warriors in my tips. And, yeah, it just didn't shock me.
So Souths play Friday night against Melbourne.
Yep.
And Manly play Saturday afternoon against Newcastle.
Okay, so the Saturday afternoon's not a bad turnaround. Friday, that extra day, heavy legs, emotional toll, Melbourne will beat Souths.
You would like to think so, even though Souths are at home. You can sense that Souths.
Souths willed their way to a win.
It's absolutely.
They didn't, they weren't clinical. They didn't look sharp. They found a way to win on Saturday
without being the better team.
Yeah, that's right.
Some players back for them too would help a lot if they can get some back this week.
They still had their whole back line. The attacking side of things was still intact.
Yes.
And their spine was intact. The rest of the back line was intact. Their lock was there. Yeah, they were missing a couple of big boys.
I know we've talked about him nearly every week, I think, but Ola Kawatu, he's really starting to become not only one of Manly's most important players, but almost what Kikau went through at Panthers. He became not only just a really good impact player, but one of the biggest X factors in the league.
And then all of a sudden you wake up that one morning and you go, oh, hang on, he's really good. He's up there with the best back rower in the comp.
Yeah, absolutely. And that catch that he took to score that try, like it was almost like dunking a basketball.
The Kikau scenario, the Kikau example comparison is a good one, actually. Very similar. They lose Cooler now, though, I think, for about a month. He's done the knee, so I think he's 4-6 weeks out.
Who comes in for him?
Morgan Harper, probably.
Where's Jason Saab? Is he injured?
Injured, yeah. Coming back from that ACL.
Do you think he would play?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah, he's better than the winger Tuipulotu.
Christian Tuipulotu.
Yeah, Christian Tuipulotu, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Saab's better than him.
Warriors Dogs, you mentioned it before, you thought that the Dogs would struggle after that game last week where it was blistering hot conditions. Are you buying the Warriors as a top 8 team?
No, I'm a big believer in they're much better than what I thought they were going to be, and they're better than last year.
So what's the difference?
They look like they know what they're doing. They look like they've got a clear direction in how they want to play footy. They probably look a little bit fitter than what they have been, and Sean Johnson seems to be fit.
It's so funny that when you talk about a team and how they've rapidly improved, the first thing that you always say about the team is, well, they're fitter, for starters. Yeah. It's such a basic thing, but why is it that some clubs just aren't fit at the moment?
Leadership. So you'd find the majority of teams will train the same. They've got the same principles. They've got the same... The strength and conditioning coaches have all come from the same background, so I assume that most of them train very similar. Some teams definitely train a little bit harder. Some teams will push their players a little bit harder. But I think it comes down to leadership, setting an example, and not letting blokes take shortcuts.
It's pretty remarkable. You talk about a guy like Tarek Sims, for example. Tarek, he's been at the Cowboys, Knights, Dragons.
Yep.
Said that the hardest preseason he's ever done by a country mile was down in Melbourne. And it's no coincidence that when he was at the Cowboys, they didn't have a lot of success. When he was at Newcastle, they didn't have a lot of success. And at the Dragons, they haven't had a lot of success either. So there's common threads throughout the league.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, just going back, thinking about the Warriors, who have they beaten? Like, I know they're going well and they look better, but they beat the Cowboys, and we just had a 5-minute discussion on how we don't think the Cowboys are very good. They beat the Bulldogs, who they're clearly better than what they were, but they're still not a good footy side. So, again...
And they beat Newcastle.
And they beat Newcastle, who I'm not sure what happened yesterday, but I don't know, I didn't see that coming from Newcastle.
And the tough stretch will come up for the Warriors over the next few weeks. They've got Cronulla this week, and then Newcastle again, but then they have the Cowboys again. I've got a real theory. I think it's tough to beat two teams. I think it's tough to beat the same team twice in a really short period.
Yep, agree.
So, Knights and Cowboys, I could easily see those results being reversed.
Yep, definitely. And I suppose too, teams are starting to get themselves into the year a little bit. Also, the preseason challenge, I don't know what or how that may have affected certain teams, but you never see that many good players and top 25 players playing as much minutes in the trials as what teams had with the preseason challenge.
Knights Raiders, I thought when I heard Xavier Savage was out for the year, for a while, for the start of the year, I thought if they can just be 500 around when Xavier Savage gets back, I think that they could really push for a top 8 spot. And probably even towards the middle of the top 8. Mate,
no.
They are so inconsistent.
And now Whiten's gone for a fortnight.
The difference between their best football and their worst football is the biggest disparity in the league.
Yeah. They can beat anyone. When they're flying, they have proven that they can beat anyone. But then they turn around and they throw up the rubbish that they threw up yesterday.
Like they beat Cronulla last week, and spoke to Hannay at the start of last week, and he was really scared about that game. He said, "Mate, we haven't beaten the Raiders in years for some reason."
Teams it's bogey teams, isn't it?
Yes.
It's funny like that.
And the Raiders, sure as day, they beat the Sharks. Did not even look like beating the Newcastle Knights in the second half.
So speaking of the Sharks, and again, I know that it's about to come up. We spoke about the Broncos before and how they're travelling, and last week we had a really big chat about that first 70 minutes against the Dragons. Well, there's a common thread 2 weeks in a row, isn't there? The Dragons just fell to pieces after 70 minutes.
Does that come down to fitness as well?
Well,
fair bit of talk around the Dragons at the moment.
There is. When it happens 2 weeks in a row with 10 minutes to go, it's either fitness or a give-up mentality.
Yeah.
And with Ben Hunt in the team, I don't see them being a bunch of blokes that are going to give up or that he would allow them to give up. However, he's only one person.
That's right. I really like Anthony Griffin. He's been on my show. His days are numbered. You know, how often does someone ask you to reapply for your job? And then
I know. That's
so. First of all, it's run like a circus.
It's just ridiculous. Either tell him he's gone or let him coach.
Could you see Anthony just walking away?
No chance.
I don't think so.
No, he's a determined, competitive bloke. He's not walking away from anything.
But the thing is, you know, this is the thing about Hook. Hook's the only person in the past at least 20 years to be sacked from in the top 4.
I know.
So he's just as likely to go on a run at the end of the year.
Something weird was going on there. He was getting backstabbed for sure there.
So he could be in a situation where he's sacked in the top 4 2 weeks out from the finals.
Yeah.
At Penrith, which was just
and they only won one game for the rest of the year, didn't they? That
just
season.
A disgrace. The best part about that whole period was when they asked Maloney, "Could you have won the premiership under Hook?" And he said, "Yes."
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. He did too.
Yes, we could.
Yeah, that's right. We're coming fourth.
Yeah. Yes. So he's been in that position, and now he could be in a similar position here. And I'm not proclaiming that they're going to make a run for the top 4 or anything, but he might be gone no matter what happens this year. That's what I'm saying. And you know, there's a lot of rumours out there about Young, Riles, Hasler.
Yeah. You know, we spoke before about after 70 minutes they fell apart. Is it fitness? Is it concentration? Is it not giving a rat's? I don't know. I reckon they care. Because you wouldn't put yourself in a position 2 weeks in a row. You wouldn't try your guts out for 70 minutes, be in a position where you can win a game, just to give up.
Yes.
It's weird. And it's not like they're playing, you know, Cronulla haven't been that good. I know Nico Hines was back and he's brings so much attack to them. Oh, yeah. I don't know. It's not like they had Penrith doing it to them.
Yeah. I really feel for Hook in this situation regardless. And who wouldn't? Because he might be in a situation, well, let's be honest, he is in a situation where no matter what he does now, he's gone.
Yep.
So, you've seen this with your brother. Take me behind the scenes. What's their thought process at the moment? Because let's take Anthony, for example. You know, lost a lot of games in a row at the Broncos. You had the media being absolute hounds at the time. Absolute hounds. They were like dogs ready to get off the leash, ready to go.
Yep.
What's his process in that time? Because I'm sure, even though Anthony would have liked to have kept coaching, I'm sure he could see the writing on the wall at some stage.
Mate, his was a bit of a unique situation because there was a few other things that were going on as well. But the media stuff was relentless.
Oh.
There was a lot of lies and stuff being made up around the place, and there was a number of contributing factors. But at the time, believe it or not, I didn't really talk to him about footy. It was more, how you going? You know, trying to just have a chat to him.
Yep.
So, look, I don't know. I wouldn't have a clue. I'd only be guessing if I tried to say what he was thinking footy-wise at the time.
I'm not even talking footy-wise, though. Like, could you see, just from a mental point of view, and I wouldn't even... Who would blame him if he was? But, like... And I'm not saying that Hook is going through the exact same thing now because very different circumstances. Broncos, one-team town, media, relentless, Courier Mail. But... and St George, obviously, is one of 9 in Sydney.
Yeah.
So... But... do they just get off mentally, like almost blocking out the rest of the world? Just
but everyone's human, hey. So
of course,
I think it's got to affect them. It does. It affects people. So there's probably only one bloke that's coaching that it doesn't affect them. He actually gets off on seeing other people mentally disintegrate and him being the cause of it. And I think you know who we're talking about.
Yep.
So it's got to be tough for them.
Do you think it was the right decision to take the St George job for Hook? I would argue yes.
Yeah.
Purely for the fact that...
He's okay. We're not being disrespectful to anyone that might be a Tigers fan that is having a listen, but it's not like he was taking the Tigers job.
That's right.
It's a good club.
Yes.
They got a fairly decent roster.
So are they underperforming as a roster? People criticise Brad Arthur, right?
Yep.
I think Brad Arthur's a very good coach.
Yep.
And I think I think last year, for example, just take last year, and every year almost, I think he gets the absolute best out of that Parramatta squad.
Of course he does. And that's probably why they're chasing an X factor, because they know they need something.
Yes. I think losing to Penrith in the grand final last year...
is no embarrassment.
No embarrassment, but I do think that is as good as they could have gone.
Yeah, definitely. The only way that they were winning that grand final is if Cleary knocked himself out in the first minute or got sent off.
Yeah, exactly. So you judge a coach by what they get out of their players.
People are really unfair, mate. Like, anyone to have lost to the Panthers over the last few years, like, seriously, how can you bag them? And the only team to beat them was with Cameron Smith steering the ship, and he was never losing that game of footy because he's too good.
Yeah.
So... it was just ridiculous, the amount of rot that's been spoken about some teams.
So have the Dragons underperformed compared to their roster?
That's a really tough one, hey, because they're not good. Like, their roster's not good.
Yep.
They're not a top 4 roster. They're not a top 6 roster.
No.
They're probably a team that, with a month to go, should be in a position to give themselves a chance to make the 8. And that's what they've done the last 2 years. That's what they've done when Hook's been there. With a month to go, both years, they've been in a position now, are you good enough to make it or not?
People forget a lot too. This is Hook's 3rd year. In his first year, they were coming 6th.
Yep.
Then the barbecue happened
during
COVID.
Yep.
And nearly their entire squad got suspended. And it wasn't just... This is what crippled them about that suspension. Because there were so many, and because it was during COVID times, they couldn't just go, okay, you're all out for week 19.
They had to
break it up.
That's right, yeah.
Over a month. So while it was a 1-week suspension, it was technically a month suspension.
It hurt them for a month.
They didn't win a game.
Yeah.
They came to Rocky, looked absolutely abysmal against the Cowboys, who were rubbish at the time, and they were just horrendous.
Yep.
So... have they underperformed? You could argue no. I think you could argue no.
Yeah, like where I was heading before was that they're probably where they should be. They're in with a chance of making the finals with a month to go.
Yeah, because
they're not better than that, but they're not a bottom 4 side. So
at the end of the day as well, take a look at the top 4 teams. They've got at least 2 spine players who are elite.
Yeah. The Dragons have got one.
Have one.
Yeah.
And the rest are kids.
And it's an argument whether he's an elite halfback, he's an elite player.
Yes.
Of just maybe he's a better version than Luke Brooks.
Yeah.
Is he a halfback? Is he a 5'8"? Is he a hooker? I don't know. He's just good. Yeah. So
Do you think we'll see that move at some point during the year, him to dummy half?
no, because you've got to have someone to replace him, and I don't think they do.
No.
They got Amon, but where's his head at?
I know, and it's such a shame because he to me was their most promising youngster over the last year or so. So for him to be a stooge off the field certainly hurts them and hurts Hook. And I totally supported the clean out that Hook did at the time of all those players after the barbecue. He got rid of the Paul Vaughns and Matt Duffy. Matt Duffy's not winning anything.
No way in the world. There's a reason he got moved on from everywhere. The Dogs, he lasted about a month there.
Exactly. And that was the Dogs during tough times. So.
And now, it's funny, isn't it, how every ex-player becomes an expert and thinks that they can coach and do a better job. Have you seen the former Dragon centre who's now said that he could come in and fix their defence up?
I have seen that certain former Dragon centre, and he was he was not the best out of the two centres that played at the time.
No, that's right. Well, at least he was a good defender, but
yes,
it doesn't make you a good coach.
No, that's right. And it was, what a disgrace. What a disgraceful comment. And it's the exact same, and I know you...
You know where I'm heading.
I could let you off the leash here. Old boys at clubs, rubbish.
Well,
90% of them, rubbish.
Yeah, of course they are. My favourite team is Parramatta. I love Parramatta. They did a great job of just poisoning everyone and bagging everyone for 30 years.
Absolutely.
And then we know exactly where else it happened, and now the Dragons are starting to cop it.
Yeah, there's been some people, particularly over the last sort of 5 years, I would say, it's gotten really bad, where...
Trying to stay relevant.
Oh, absolutely. I can name you... I won't name it, but I can name you one right now that it totally changed my opinion of him. He's a former old boy of a club who come out about their coach, and to me... The only thing you could try and achieve there was to toxic the air.
Yeah, that's all they're doing. They're trying to create a toxic environment or trying to push an agenda so someone else gets a job or whatever it might be. But it's just so childish. Like you're a grown man. You're an adult.
When do you see? And it's funny. Success at clubs. I know that Melbourne's gone through a really good 20 years, right?
Yeah.
So there's barely any old players that are going to come out and bag the coach, for example. But let's say Jason Riles takes over from Craig Bellamy and they go through a bit of a rough stretch. Can you imagine, like, Ryan Hinchcliff coming out?
Well, he wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
I know a few blokes who have played for the Storm over the years, and chatting to one of them, there is an old boy that is just not invited to their old boys' days because of toxic comment and environment that sometimes are created around this particular person, and that's the way that they deal with them. That's why they're so successful. They just shut it out. Well, you're not wanted. If you're not going to buy into what we're doing, well, don't come.
Absolute. And it's a wonder that they keep letting them hang around because
and that's what the Storm don't. They just don't tolerate it. They won't let them hang around.
And it's the same as the Roosters. Now I know that these still successful clubs. Like it's not like they've been. They've had successful times. They're not gone through successful times.
But it hasn't been 2 or 3 years of success.
Yes.
The Roosters have been successful since 2000, basically. They've made those 3 grand finals in a row. The Storm have been successful since 2006.
Yes.
And consistently, the Roosters have had 1 or 2 poor years in there.
Yep.
The Storm have had the salary cap year.
Yep.
But apart from that, they've been in the top 8 every year, both of those sides.
Yes. And it's so as we come full circle now, you get the old boys now pitching in over the weekend at St George. The board's clearly cooked. Writing's on the wall for Hook.
They could do what they did at the Tigers and just make all the old boys the coach.
Well, would it shock you if he does get a job?
Yeah, surely not. That's not happening, is it?
I wouldn't write it off.
Yeah.
Crazy clubs do crazy things.
Yeah.
Hey, Seibs, we'll finish with this. What are you looking forward to most this weekend? Surely it's Parramatta Roosters.
Para Roosters should be a good game. Para's without Paulo. Roosters are without Manu. I think it'll be a tight one.
The Bulldog Cowboys game is probably the one that launches out to me because the Bulldogs.
What are you going for, the vomit carp?
Well, you can go with the obvious ones. You can go with Storm Rabbits, I suppose. But the Bulldogs Cowboys, we might look back on this in a month and say, this is where one club made their climb towards a top 8 spot, and where the other one sort of faltered out a bit. Because if the Cowboys were to lose this, I think they're in a world of hurt at the moment.
Oh, they're in big trouble. Whoever loses this is in big trouble.
Absolutely.
Now, we don't think the Dogs are going to be that good anyway, as far as top 8 side goes. But yeah, the Cows can't afford to lose too many more. The Penrith Raiders one's interesting. Penrith should smash them, and Penrith need a win. Penrith have only had one win all year.
Yeah, wow. It's funny to think about that, isn't it?
And again, same boat as Para. They've lost a couple of games where it's been close games, and they haven't looked... Well, the first game against Brisbane, they were poor, but they at least were still good enough to put themselves in a position to be in it. So, it's not emergencies for Penrith yet, but...
Do you think the bye hurt them? Coming off that really good win and then into a bye?
Well, it was funny. They started slow, didn't they?
Yeah.
In that game, and then they come home strong.
Yeah.
Whereas the week before, Manly had the bye, and Manly started fast and sort of fell away with 10 to go. They sort of ran out of puff a little bit. So it's going to be interesting over the next few weeks how the team coming off the bye reacts.
Absolutely. Seibs, good to see you.
Thanks, mate.